without our consent. It was only 8 short years ago, in 1765, that Lord Grenville saw fit to tax our letters, on newspapers, all of our printed documents under the Stamp Act. Many were outraged by the Stamp Act, none more so than Thomas Porter. Mr. Porter, you've always been vocal for taxation. What's in with the Stamp Act?
Parliament not only taxed our paper and ink, they also even taxed our playing cards and dice.
Well said, sir. I think you're still furious after all these years, for good reason. We were told that these taxes were meant to repay our debts from the French and Indian Corps, a debt for which we paid 1,000 times over. Was it not our fathers, our brothers, many of us who fought alongside the King's army during that conflict? If there was a price to be paid, then it was paid at the expense of good New England blood. After the repeal of the Stamp Act, those greedy ministers in Parliament next saw fit to pinch our pewter candlesticks. Our paint, glass, lead, tea, all taxed under a man who we thought was our friend in Parliament. The good name of Charles Townshend. Mr. Porter's anger has been echoed by others as well. James Brewer, I heard that your house needed new windows. With the tax on glass, how did you pay for them during the Townshend Acts?
I did not pay for them. I was forced to choose between new windows or putting food in my family's belly.
Outrageous! Shame on Parliament! No. In response to outrages such as these, merchants banded together. We signed non-importation agreements stating that we would no longer trade in any of these unjustly taxed goods. Many of the women in Boston, the Daughters of Liberty, joined in non-consumption agreements, promising to never let any of these English goods into their homes. By your united efforts, your united resolves, I'm proud to say you forced many of these Townshend duties to be repealed.
It was a British soldier standing guard. Red coat, tricornered hat. You've seen Outlander. You know what they look like. Anyway, so Boston boys came and started teasing him. They claimed he hadn't paid for his wig. They also said his shoes were out of season, and before they could joke about his bad makeup job, he hit one of them with the butt of his musket. Then that boy went out into a tavern, told the people what had happened, so they went back outside, formed an angry mob, started throwing rocks, ice, and clamshells at him. They were also threatening to beat him to death with clubs. So we called for reinforcements, which is what you or I would do. They began loading their muskets, and their captain, Thomas Preston, stood in front of them and was like, whoa, 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 whoa. You can't shoot at an unarmed crowd. So he's turning around trying to get people to disperse. He's saying, don't fire, but people in the crowd are yelling, fire, damn you, fire. So it sounded like they got the order to fire. It was a horrible misunderstanding. They shot into the crowd, and as a result, 5 men were killed. Now, I must make it clear, it is horrible that these 5 men died needlessly, but it wasn't exactly a massacre. Because as I told you, Samuel Adams was twisting the truth because, you know, his objective was to get you to want to break away from Britain.
But there does appear to be an ever-growing hole in the purse of the English treasury, and their greedy eyes have now turned to our tea. If Lord North wishes to enforce a 3 pence per pound tax on tea to signify the supremacy of Parliament and its supposed right to tax the colonies, then don't we deserve the right to representation?
Yeah!
You would need to scrape out that loose leaf, densely packed tea. No tea bags in these boxes. This would be done with your hats, your boots, your hatchets, scraping this tea out and throwing it into the icy December waters. In the span of 3.5 hours' time, 340 chests of tea were destroyed across the 3 vessels at Griffin's Wharf. Now that's a lot of tea. That's 92,616 pounds of tea, to be exact. That's also a lot of money. 10,000 pounds in my day, but in your modern currency, well, that's roughly $1.5 million worth of property damage. Huzzah!
Afterwards, we removed our disguises, disposed of any tea upon our person, and then as we did on board, we swore an oath to never speak of having been there, whoever else was there, nor what we had done. And to a man, we almost all managed to keep our mouths quiet. Gentlemen, please check your cards. Would Mr. Francis Akeley please raise your hand? Ah, Mr. Akeley! You blathering blatherskite!
But the next law that they're going to pass is not going to be temporary, it's going to be permanent. It's going to apply to the entirety of the colony, and it is going to be far out of proportion to what anybody had done up until this point. And that is going to be the Massachusetts Government Act, okay? And what this is essentially going to be is the King and Parliament over in London reaching across the Atlantic and revoking our colonial charter. So now, instead of that government that John Winthrop and his fellow Puritans had established here, where people actually had a say in how things were going to be run, now pretty much every single public position here in Massachusetts will be chosen by the King and Parliament back in London. Second, you know those town meetings that are going to be really the bread and butter of Sam Adams? Well, those were also a colony-wide thing, but not anymore. Under the Massachusetts Government Act, this building is closed down, as well as are all the other town meeting areas across Massachusetts. Town meetings can only be held once every year. So in response to this, two things are going to happen. First, the people in the Massachusetts countryside are going to be left sitting there going, wait a minute, we didn't do anything. How come we're losing our government and our rights? Second thing that's going to happen is all the other colonies are going to be looking at Massachusetts going, wait a minute, if they can do that to them, they can do it to us as well. So a joint meeting of the colonies is going to be called over in Philadelphia, where they will all talk and coordinate their joint response to these intolerable acts. A few of the militia do start to walk away, and it is at this point where somebody somewhere, we don't know who, fires off the now famous shot heard around the world. And although we do not know who fired that shot, we know who fired the next ones. The British, in response, are going to fire off a ragged volley that goes over the heads of the of the colonial militia. The militia think the British are just firing off blanks. But when the next volley actually strikes a few of them, they realize, oh, the British are actually firing live ammunition. At this point, they're going to disperse. The British are going to bayonet charge across the field, and the first shots fired in anger of the American Revolution will result in the killing or wounding of 8 colonial militia on Lexington Green. The militia have shown that they're willing to face down British regulars in the open, even if it did lead to an ultimate routing at the end of it. But the regulars also know the militia are out in force. But they're going to continue marching all the way down, all the way down to Concord. And what do they find when they get there? Almost nothing. Empty crates, a broken gun carriage for a cannon we broke trying to get it out of town quickly, and a couple of small caches of gunpowder that they stack in the middle of Concord and begin to burn to destroy it, to deny us of anything else that we may be able to use those things for. Well, just north of Concord at the same time, however, is a force of about 450 colonial militia that suddenly see a column of smoke rising from the center of Concord, and they immediately believe the British are burning the town down. So they charge down the hill towards the what is now known as, or what was known as, the North Bridge, where there's a force of about 100 British regulars there trying to dismantle the bridge quickly. This then results in the first volley-for-volley combat of the American Revolution, and the first major casualties of this combat are going to be the British officers. The British regulars, lacking this important leadership and organization, are going to begin withdrawing back up the road, and they run smack dab into the column of troops that were sent to reinforce them. This additional disorganization and confusion leads to the retreat that will eventually take them the 22 miles back all the way to Boston, during which time more and more men are arriving to that original signal of Paul Revere in their thousands. And one man in particular is going to take charge, Dr. Joseph Warren, who, in the process of it, will be telling men, stop firing in volleys, to take aim and fire on your own time, get behind cover, reload on your own time, and keep the pressure up. And historian of the battle will say afterward that many people assume that Joseph Warren was always where the fighting was thickest. But instead, it's far more accurate to say that the fighting was thickest because Joseph Warren was there, personally taking charge and keeping the pressure up on the attack. And as he keeps them together throughout the entire combat, when the British arrive back in the city of Boston, their total number will be about 4,000 in the city itself, soon to be reinforced in the coming months to about 6,000. But around the city of Boston itself, starting the siege of the city, will be more than 15,000 colonial militia now trying to win the siege of Boston, liberate the city, and will eventually lead to the Battle of Bunker Hill, the first major battle of the American Revolution, which we will now head to our final stop of the afternoon to go talk about.